Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this week's webinar, which will be on reassessments. Joining us today as presenters, we have myself. I am Kylie van Sale, and so most of you will have had dealings with me at some point, and our JPPS reassessment officer, who is Veda McClellan, who many of you will have received an email from already. Just a little bit of admin before we get going. Please pop questions into the chat or preferably into the Q&A box, which is the fourth item from the left at the bottom of your Zoom panel. We will be dealing with Q&A at the end. However, if you have a question very specific to your journal rather than the assessment or reassessment process as a whole, preferably the reassessment process, as that is the topic of this week's webinar, please email us so that we can look up your case and get back to you with all the information rather than asking that question today. We will give our email addresses at the end of the webinar, and I think many of you probably have our addresses anyway. I am applications@ajol.info. Veda is jpps@ajol.info. I think that's all in terms of admin. We hopefully will be going pretty fast today. Not going to be a very long webinar because it's a fairly straightforward explanation of the process. I will be walking you through the significance of JPPS assessments in general, and Veda will deal more specifically with reassessments. Can I just get a general idea? Can everyone hear me?
Yes. You're a little bit soft.
A little bit soft. I think
can hear you.
Okay, how about now? Cool. I've turned up my microphone.
Better.
Yes.
Better.
Turned up.
Can I also just double check that everyone can hear me?
Yes,
You're perfect, Veda.
I was softer earlier. I took my headphones out.
Okay, great stuff. Joining us today from AJOL, apart from Veda and I, we have our CEO, Susan Murray, our COO, Ivy Mutambanengwe, and our communications officer, Kate Snow, as well as Sizi Kalata, who does our uploading. So if you have issues that you want uploaded, Sizi is the one that does it. This is our full staff complement, all women, as you will notice. We're quite proud of that, given the need to see more women in academic publishing spheres. Right. Okay. So without further ado, let us get going. I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see that? Why is this not? Sorry, everyone. I've just got a few stacked windows here, which is making my life awkward. Cool. So this week's topic, JPPS reassessment, the what, the how, and the why. As always, we thank CEDA for their generous financial support, and we also thank Zoom for their generous donation of a pro license and a webinar license. Okay. So firstly, most of you will have been familiar with this because you've all been through the assessment process, but why do we have the assessment process? What is the JPPS system for? JPPS stands for Journal Publishing Practices and Standards. It's unique to AJOL, and the reason it exists in the first place is that journals from the Global South face a very large and slightly very complex set of challenges that differ significantly from the ones that are faced by journals in the North. Firstly, we deal with a lot of bias from Northern institutions regarding the quality of Southern research. Also, we face bias regarding the quality of our publishing protocols. And there's also quite a lot of barriers to entry that are not unique to Africa, but are unique and mostly found in the Global South, such as underfunding, lack of infrastructure, and lack of a means to easily disseminate research publications. And as I will say repeatedly, I think I say this in every single webinar I'm in, if we can't read research, it can't be used. And research that can't be used is not super useful. So AJOL aims to address all three of these hurdles for African journals by providing an online accessible platform for the indexing of African journals at no cost to the journals themselves. We encourage free to read open access publishing where possible, because like I just said a moment ago, if we can't read it, we can't use it. We do understand that a lot of African journals cannot afford to have no article processing charges or something. but we are seeing a general uptick in free to read, which is great because that's what we want. Diamond Open Access is our first prize. We go for that. We push it quite heavily, but we are also aware that there are sometimes force majeure needs to be respected. And we also provide a schematic which journals can use to improve their publishing practices and protocols, and that is the JPPS. On the, I believe, the 13th of October, please join us for a dedicated webinar on the JPPS. It's quite a large and rambling topic. We, in fact, have 2 webinars on it, one on the 13th of October and one on the 27th. Please join us for both of those. They will be publicized in due course. This is just an overview. Right, so what do we use when using the JPPS to arrive at an assessment result? Many of you will have waited very patiently for me to complete your assessments. They are exhaustive. They take forever. I do apologize. I go as fast as I can, but it is a fairly detailed process. We look at almost the journal's entire being. We look at your governance structures. Is there an active editorial board? Who are they? How involved are they? It has happened that I've come across editorial boards that are quite out of date. That kind of thing, it's something we take into account. How on top of things is journal management. We also look at quality assurance structures. What is the peer review process? What actually happens during peer review? Is information passed along clearly and timely? Do you have policies on plagiarism, retraction of articles, corrections, and so on? Is that all there? Is that working? We look at the financial form of the journal. Is it open access? Is it free to publish? What are the article processing charges? Are they transparently given? Are they reasonable? Are they accessible? Is there a waiver policy? We also look at things like advertising. Should your journal allow advertising? And then we get stuck into the nitty-gritty of the articles themselves. Are they of good quality? Is the formatting consistent? Does a reference system follow an acknowledged system such as APA or Harvard, Oxford, anything? Do you stick to the rules that you yourselves lay out? Are conflicts of interest declared? Are acknowledgements given? We cannot evaluate the quality of the research itself. That would be impossible. We have many, many, many different research disciplines. It feels like it's increasing every day, and we just do not have the internal expertise. But that is what peer review is for. So if your peer review is working, so is that probably. Okay, so what happens during an assessment? Firstly, first step usually is to contact the editorial board and the advisory board if there is one. Not all journals have an advisory. This is a very important test of how engaged the broader leadership bodies are, and to make sure that everybody on the board knows they're on the board and actually has a job on the board. We evaluate, furthermore, all of the information we can find. Your peer review policies, fees and charges, publication intervals, article publication protocols, everything. If you think it's relevant, we probably look at it. If there's anything you would like us to look at specifically, do let us know. If you've made an improvement or a change in a certain area, tell us. We're obviously interested. We would like to know. And then we score you, we notify you, and then we onboard you, and eventually come around to reassessing you. So let me just say this before we go any further. Transparency in journal publishing practices is vital. Cannot stress this enough. The information needs to be available to us. Because if it is available to us, it should be available to all of your stakeholders, potential authors, potential reviewers, readers, everybody. When we send out the slides, which we will do in due course, Principles of Transparency and Best Practice in Scholarly Publishing is a link that you'll be able to click. So do please take a second to go through that once you have the slides. Okay, but why bother with any of this? What is it for? AJOL is not just a platform on which you can index. It is also a body that can help you improve your protocols and overall journal quality. Joining AJOL is not a one and done. Many of you will have found this. It is a multi-stranded process. Different people are involved. There's lots of emailing back and forth. Many of you very, very politely asked me to hurry up. I'm so sorry. I sometimes cannot go any faster. But the thing with AJOL is you don't just join and forget it. You're on the platform, but don't rest on your laurels. It's the beginning of an exciting journey to improve your journal overall. We do it, you do it, we all work together, and the result is a better, stronger publishing protocol for your journal and in general academic publishing in Africa. So we encourage constant efforts at improvement. It's a very dynamic environment, academic publishing. There's new opportunities, there's new stresses. For example, AI is causing, like, I'm not even going to say a ripple effect. AI is just exploded onto the scene. We're still grappling with that. And it won't be the first kind of challenge that we come up with. It isn't the first challenge that we've had. So it's quite important to think of publishing a journal as a process, not a state, not an event. It's a state of being. And we can only gauge progress and improvement by examining change over time, which brings us to why we do reassessments. So an onboarding assessment, excuse me. Summer is taking a very long time to come in South Africa, let me tell you. So an onboarding assessment is only a rating of what a journal is like when it joins AJOL. It's a snapshot, if you will. And it's not, and it shouldn't be the final form of your journal. And the initial onboarding assessment is lengthy and sometimes resembles a bit of a, the hunt for clues. We don't know you yet. We don't know your staff. We only have a general idea of your journal's origins. We don't know you very well. It's a bit like meeting someone for the first time. There's only so much you can get to in your initial interactions. We learn about our partner journals throughout their relationship with us. Your origin, your situations, your challenges, your strengths, your field, your whole sort of reason for existing. We learn that over time, which is why we do reassessments. And reassessments are a slightly different animal because we already have you as a partner. So you're online and you have access to the various benefits of being online, and that also causes changes. And this is where my colleague Veda comes in. Veda does the reassessments. We work together quite closely, but she is the particular expert in that field. And very shortly, I will be handing over to her to talk us through that. But my last point is that why does it take so long? Why do we keep doing this? Why is it such an agonizingly long process that results in lots of waiting for you? We apologize. That's because it's exhaustive. There are several hundred individual checks required to verify whether a journal meets criteria. And there's quite often a lot of mentoring during this time, explaining what is needed to each applicant. As you'll discover quite shortly, one of the issues that we have frequently is that we are not sent documents we ask for. We are sent incomplete documents. We are sent basically journals that are heading not in the wrong direction, but in a different direction to the one they should be heading in. That kind of thing. There's a lot of back and forth. And often, frankly, people contacted for information don't reply very fast. We get it. I don't reply very fast either. Most of us are doing several jobs, wearing several hats. It takes time to get around to things. And I apologize, but it's almost never a simple request that I have for you. So sometimes you have to hunt down information and so on. So that slows things down. And also, as I think I've probably said to most of you at some point, there's only 6 of us. We're all here today. This is us. This is the entirety of AJOL. We service an entire continent, and there's 6 of us. And today's presenters, that's Veda and myself, are the only ones that handle journal assessments and reassessments. Everybody else does their own jobs, and we don't really have the staff currently to go any faster. When we get 4 or 5 new applications every week, I get multiple queries every day about new assessments. It's just an endless inflow of work, which I am grateful for, and which I think is an excellent sign of the vibrancy of the research landscape in Africa. But it's, there's only so many hours in the day, so things get, what's the word here, bottlenecked. Cool. I think that brings me to the end of my section. So I'm going to hand over to Veda now, who will talk you through some of the ways and most important points about the reassessments. Veda, are you ready?
Yep, I'm
Okay.
just sharing my screen.
Cool.
Right. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Kylie. You all know I'm Veda. I deal with your JPPS reassessments. As Kylie said, some of you may have heard from me by now, some of you may not have. So I'm basically just going to be going over some of the how regarding the JPPS reassessment process. So to jump straight into it, I basically use 3 sources of information when doing a reassessment for a journal. First and foremost, I'm looking at your journal's AJOL homepage. That is my primary source of information. And for this reason, as Kylie said, it's so important to keep us updated, to send us new issues, to send us updated information, even if it's the smallest bit of information like a fee change. It generally will need to be updated, and we do need to be informed. So another source that I look at is the journal websites or affiliated websites that also generally would appear on the AJOL homepage. Sometimes I will do a quick Google search to find these, just to see if there is anything. And my last source is sometimes the journals send through a current issue of their recent PDF, the full PDF issue of their latest issue, sorry. And this usually contains, depending on the journal, this is based on my observations, this usually contains like up-to-date information regarding editorial boards or fees information. It could be things that the journal is changing from issue to issue. But like I say, we do not check for these updates, so we do need to please be informed of them. And basically checking these last two non-AJOL sources, the websites and the PDFs, helps us to determine whether what is on the JOL is in fact up to date or current, and whether the journal's information is consistent over the journal's entire online presence. This does impact your reassessment. Okay. So leading on from that, some trends that I've noticed whilst assessing journals. I've noticed that the feedback that I tend to give to different journals sometimes points out the same elements for improvement over and over again. So I thought I'd just share some of these with you, with the editors, just so you can get an idea of things to look at. And so our most recurring trend is that, and Kylie's touched on this, journals are not informing us of updates or sending new issues through to us. As I explained, AJOL is the first place I go, and I think you would have seen this in an email from us before, but the onus is entirely on the journal to inform us when new issues are published or updates have been made. Email addresses are at the end of this presentation, but new issues can be sent to info@ajol.info, and any information for updating can be sent to myself at jpps@ajol.info. So another recurring issue that I often see is journal identifiers like electronic and print ISSNs are sometimes incorrect or missing. Just as a general rule of thumb, we do strongly encourage journals to make sure that their identifiers are always correct and working at all times. So if your journal title changes, for example, please do make the effort to ensure that the necessary changes have been made with the ISSN authority. And as a side note, leading on from that, every journal on AJOL should have an electronic or e-ISSN number. We will be hosting an ISSN webinar, I think on the 29th. So do join us for that if you want to get some more info. I think I have put a link in here. I think I've skipped. Yes, I have put a link there, number 2. That'll take you to the ISSN website, and you can also do a bit of reading. Okay, so moving on to the third point. Sometimes journals don't provide enough information for their authors, for potential authors who are looking at publishing in journals. And by this, I mean certain elements might be missing that are actually very important for authors to know. For example, does the journal charge fees? How much? What fees? Is it an article processing charge? Is the focus and scope of the journal informative enough for an author to decide to publish in the journal? How to submit an article to a journal. I find that these basic items are just sometimes not there, and they are quite necessary to inform decision-making of prospective authors wanting to publish in your journals. So yeah, we encourage journals to also provide as much information as possible for the JOL. It is good to come up with a detailed and comprehensive set of guidelines for what each submission from an author is expected to look like. A lot of journals do have this, the author guidelines, but I encourage you to get as much info as possible in there. And this includes even, for example, if a journal, I touched on fees, if a journal doesn't charge fees, it helps to just have a little statement in there saying that your journal doesn't charge fees, just to be as transparent as possible, basically. Right, then we have the peer review processes. I found that a number of journals give very vague or inconsistent peer review explanations, and sometimes none at all. So this is very important. All academic journals are required to have a solid peer review system for journals to be sure that they are publishing research of the highest quality. So we strongly encourage journals to implement a very solid peer review process, and also send them through to us to display and to keep on file. And finally, one thing that is very uncommon that I don't see very often at all is agreements between authors and publishers. So signed prior to publication, sorry. Between authors and the journals. These publishing agreements should be enforced, if not just to simply protect both parties regarding a number of different legalities. Alrighty. Okay, so once I have assessed a journal and subsequently determined the rating, I send an email to the editor. As I said, some of you may have heard from me, some may not have. And in these emails, I will give journal-specific feedback regarding items that they can improve upon or potentially include on their AJOL page for going forward. Obviously, based on the reassessments, each journal's case is entirely unique, and what I request from one journal may not be the case for another. I generally will also request certain documents from journal managers or editors so that we can keep them on file and also update the JOL. Once all of the documentation has been received, I will update the journal's AJOL homepage accordingly. And if everything is in order, I also upgrade their JPPS star rating officially, which is basically the final step of the reassessment process, barring continuous improvement. Right, so now some of you may have received communication from me, like I said, and some may not have. I am currently nearing the end of a round of assessments for all pre-existing AJOL partners that have been on AJOL prior to, I think it's 2021. So if you've not yet received a JPPS reassessment notification email from me, it could be due to a number of things. One is that I may not yet have finished it off. As I said, I'm nearing the end of my pile, so to speak. So there are a handful of journals still waiting to be assessed. There's not very many left, so you should be hearing from me fairly soon. Another potential reason is that your journal is inactive on AJOL or for the last 18 months, basically. There's been no publication on AJOL. This would render your journal inactive, and this means that I've probably not picked it up to assess it, because I can see that I'd be assessing old information. Another potential reason I'll just add is that the email may have bounced or has gone undelivered, or it has ended up in your spam folder. I have emailed a few journals, quite a lot of journals actually, that have not received the emails or answered the emails. I'll be going back through all of these journals, finding alternative contacts. So please do bear with me for now. And I thank you for your patience, but also, please do check your spam folders for an email specifically from jpps@ajol.info. Quite a lot of the emails that I've sent out have been delivered with no response, so it is highly likely that it may have ended up in spam. If you have received a JPPS email from me and you're unhappy with your result, or you just want to get better, you are able to apply for reassessment against the JPPS framework, but this can only be done 6 to 12 months after the previous assessment and on 3 conditions. Firstly, you should formally request a reassessment. all journals are reassessed from time to time, but we do appreciate specific requests. It helps us along. Secondly, your journal must have published another issue on AJOL since the last assessment took place. And lastly, you must also be able to provide evidence of improvement in the areas that I mentioned in the previous assessment. So generally, it would be your feedback. Right. Next we have, then your journal, if you follow these sets of instructions, your journal will then be added to our reassessment queue. And as Kylie mentioned, we are a small team, so please do note that we cannot get to them immediately. But we ask you to please bear with us. Okay, so I'm not sure why my slides are not changing. There we go. Right, so to finish off from my side, I basically am going to leave you all with some tips that will improve your journal's AJOL presence while also helping me in the assessment process to just basically help me get it done as punctually and correctly as possible. So to start off with, I've said it a couple of times already, keep your journal's AJOL page up to date with any new information or changes. I have it repeated there about the owners being on the journal. This is very, very important. Secondly, if your journal has any other online presence, editors should please ensure that the website and AJOL are always consistent, or any other online sources for the journal, any other sources really that the journal has should be consistent with the JOL. If information sources are inconsistent, generally with the reassessment results, it would be marked as conditional, which then prolongs the upgrading process because then I have to get information. Thirdly, it helps to check on your journal's AJOL homepage every now and again, just to see if the displayed information is accurate and current. I'd just like to add in here again that even when a journal sends their full issue to Kate for uploading, we do not assume that journal information has changed, and we do still need to be informed of any potential changes. And finally, take steps to please improve your journal's publishing practices by getting familiar with the online JPPS criteria. I do in the next slide, I'll see at the end there, I've put a link. In the next slide, there's also some links. But basically checking out the JPPS website it'll help you work towards upgrading your JPPS ratings independently of the AJOL directives. So I'm strongly encouraged to visit this website, and it basically has all of the information that anyone would need to make improvements or work toward a higher rating. Right, so that is it from me. Here is the links to the JPPS website. Before I go, I just would like to say a big thank you to all of the journal partners that I've worked with so far, and those that I am yet to work with. I can't wait to see journal ratings go up. And we will be doing a little Q&A session now for any general JPPS queries. If anyone has any journal specific queries, you can please email me directly at jpps@ajol.info. Thanks.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Good one. Okay, thank you, Veda. And thank you everybody for sticking around. I see that some people have joined us in the interim. To those who arrived while we were already in progress, we will be sharing the slides, and the recorded webinar will indeed be uploaded to YouTube in due course. I think Ms. Snow publicizes when that happens. Also, you can just check our YouTube channel. Right, if anybody has any questions that we have not yet answered in the chat or in the Q&A, please ask them now. We'll be hanging around for another few minutes. Otherwise, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy weeks to join us, and please join us on the 29th again for the webinar on ISSNs and ISSNs. Right, thank you so much. I'm going to mute myself now and wait for questions.
Hi, everyone. This is Susan speaking from AJOL. I just wanted to emphasize that many people who've been typing in questions into the Q&A section, those have been answered also by typed responses. So do have a look at the Q&A section for some interesting questions and answers there. But as Kylie said, you may now raise your hand and we can respond live if there are any urgent questions that might be of interest to everybody still participating. Thanks.